To Marianne O'Brien, and you have 8 minutes, Senator.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you for gathering the respected minds and group representatives who work within the small business sector to compile this report. And I welcome the opportunity this afternoon to discuss this report, given my own background outside this House. I'm what they call a serial entrepreneur. I mean, that's all I think about. I just love business, and I have at least 10 ideas every month of something new to start. So if anyone has any money, they can come to me, because always having new ideas. Like many people within the business community, I've felt for many years that a proactive and, very importantly, a joined-up approach. So I think it's very important today, Minister, that this is not just you, and I'll be saying it later on in my chat, that I would hope that every single department and every minister and all of your colleagues join you, because the word small business, I used to think, yeah, it was little small business, little people with little chocolate saucepans, but we are the life and blood of this country. I mean, you've all heard the figures today. You can read the figures in the report. I mean, there's 200,000 of us, and there's so many of us employed, and we're just going downhill. And it's you know, this is not an easy one, but I just wanted to make that point, that it's going to take a lot more than just us here today. It's going to take the entire government to address this. The approach being pursued by Minister Perry and his colleagues to involve representatives from the business world, and I love the thought he's going to travel the country in the formulation of this report, is to be welcomed by us all. And I'd strongly encourage you, Minister, to continue with it in the immediate future, and just to feel the urgency that we out there in the business community feel. I mean, you can't act quick enough for us. And I'm just going to skim across some of the main points of your report. I'm going to talk about the lending facilities, the banks, the labour market costs, the local authority structures, the helping the small businesses to compete on a level playing field, the helping the businesses to help themselves, those who find themselves in the crisis, and of course the hidden economy. None of this is none of these points are new to any of us business owners. I mean, I really respect your report, but I'll just go back to 2008. I think it started in February when I froze the management team's salary, big deal. By August, I'd frozen the whole factory's salaries, and they were all, I mean, they said, God, lovely Marianne is always so nice and everything's wonderful, freezing our salaries. I watched the news in September, and KPMG and Deloitte and Touche froze their staff salaries, and so it began. I felt the chill very early on. But for the next 8 months, and you know, female emotional, so you'll have to take that bit on board, but I'm not kidding you, I cried most days, most evenings, never at work, of course, strong, fabulous, always the best out. But it's crippling. It's so difficult, and it's like having a child, but you have 100 people who are relying on you, who become your family. That's who's working for me. And every Thursday, about 45,000 of a wage bill had to be met. And my main problems were the banks, and you know, we won't go into names because we're not allowed, are we, Chairman? Cathaoirleach, go into names, but you know, all I needed was a stocking loan. I'm a very viable, good business, but I had a cash flow crisis. I always got a stocking loan from the bank, but I couldn't. But roll on to 2011, there's a lot of businesses gone because of what happened to me. I was lucky. Enterprise Ireland and a private investor came in and lent me money, which I have to pay back. But they saw that I was a well-run, sustainable, good indigenous business. But, you know, let's just talk about the banks. You all read and you all hear. I was at ISME's lunch. They're all banding out these figures that they're lending these billions. They're not lending it, Minister. I can line up 20 friends with good businesses. A few of them are gone because the banks, they're not. I mean, I don't want to say, but you own them. The state owns most of these banks. We've got to make these banks accountable. And I know that I'm going off the subject, but just allow me one sentence, and I've never spoken about the bondholders, but you know, I love horse racing and I gamble a lot, but I put them and me as I bet on horses. Because I wish I had been a bondholder when I invested in a property when I did. I lost every penny in my property investment, but they haven't. But who we should be cushioning are the business owners and even some of the consumers that are the mortgage people who've lost their jobs through no fault of their own, who are now worrying in desperation how they're going to pay their mortgage. And why am I speaking about them? Because they are the people who are the customers of the small businesses of Ireland. So it's all a beautiful but very worrying circle for you, Minister, because us small businesses create wonderful tax intakes for the government, which hopefully the government reinvests into the community, and then the community spend more money with us businesses. But as you know, the circle has been broken. But as again, going back to the banks, our money is going to the Troika, who very kindly lent us all this money, but to these bondholders. And please, if we do nothing this year, let's just fight. So, raving on after the banks, a few other comments. I was speaking to the president of RG Data last night, and just we'll talk about this. I'm not a retailer, I'm a manufacturer, but the retailers I'm very concerned about. I mean, they've lost 300 of them in the last 18 months, and you know, we know from Jim Power, that brilliant economist who's passionate, and I'm sorry I'm not supposed to say by Irish because we're politicians, and EU legislation, Minister, means we're not supposed to talk about by Irish. But money spent at a local family-owned grocery store goes further for the local economy. In fact, it generates over 3 times more in the local economy than it does than if you spend it in one of the big, beautiful stores that we love. They're great to have come here. And like Senator White, I'm very grateful for my export opportunities, and I love them as customers. But at the moment, we're trying to save Ireland, you know, our own country. The independent retail, grocery and convenience sector consists of about 5,000 shops and is responsible for 93,000 full-time equivalent jobs in the economy, and makes a total contribution of about 3.6 billion. I'm sorry, but I want to put on the record again, by Irish, and I think, Minister, us senators are a different breed. I think the 60 senators here should go out. I know Christmas is over, but let's go to Tesco, but let's buy Irish stuff in Tesco. I mean, let's buy Irish, because it's just a no-brainer. In the time remaining, Minister, I want to focus on a few small things that are truly and seriously hampering businesses, my business, but also a lot of other businesses, and are very worrying things that you don't actually have to travel the length and breadth of Ireland. I would like to ask you to go down and have a meeting with Minister Joan Burton. I had a talk with her in here in the Senate about the possible sick leave changes in October. And this one continues to worry me. So I'll just give you a quick example of my own business. You know, I love human beings. There's great ones, there's different types. Some of us are brilliant engineers, some of us are mad entrepreneurs, some of us are good accountants, but we're all human beings, and I'd love 2 or 3 weeks extra off a year. Some of my staff, I know them well, and I'm going to say this, and I said it to them today, actually, this morning. I said, there's 100 of us. Don't tell me that 50 of us aren't going to the doctor and say, ferocious sore throat, I've got a pain in my hip. Please, Minister, if 50 of my staff take 3 weeks off, and this goes through, that's 150 weeks. That's 3 extra new salaries that has to come off the bottom line. Now, I'm not under 10 people or under 50 people, but that will kill me. I can't cope. I just can't cope, because I beg your pardon?
Your time is almost up.
Oh my gosh, I have so much more to say. I'll have to try and meet you, Minister, because I have pages and pages. Just a quick one that'll make you smile.
I'll call to your plant.
Okay, red tape. Just a quick one about the labour laws. Now, this is a pretty sore one, that I find it surprising that nowhere in this lengthy report is there any mention of the employment tribunals or the labour commissions in this country. There are the constant elephants in the store and in the factory, the consistent sword of Damocles hanging over every business. Yes, of course, employees' rights must be the forefront of every business, must be protected and adhered to, but so must that of the employers. Again, I would just say, if I had gone out of business in 2008, which I nearly did, my mortgage on my house is my guarantee to my business. There was no dole coming for me. There was no free coal or free fire. The only thing I was looking for was goodbye to the house. That's where the tears were coming from. The scales of justice must balance evenly. At the moment, the perception and the reality is that they are heavily tilted against the employer, it is imperative that these tribunals and commissions are reformed from top to bottom, including the criteria applying to the selection of those chosen to sit on a tribunal. Lift this burden, Minister, and see the willingness to employ become revitalised. The amount of time that an average business takes to stay in line with the employment laws of this country, I just can't begin to tell you. Just a very quick one that'll make you smile, Cathaoirleach. Red tape. I'll just give you a quick one about being a retailer. Retailer friend of mine up in Cavan, he has 70 licences. He needs a licence to sell stamps, he needs a licence to sell salmon, he needs another licence to sell organic salmon, he needs another licence to sell farm fresh salmon. He needs a licence to sell free-range eggs. He has an inspector from the Department of Agriculture who comes in to look at the size of the potatoes. He's another inspector that comes in to look at the free-range eggs and the dates on them. And he's another inspector from the Department of Agriculture. 70 licences. He needs an entertainment licence for the children to sit on the Thomas the Tank Engine thing outside his little supermarket. Crazy, Minister, crazy. The employment support scheme is my very last thing. When I was going out of business in 2008, which I didn't, there was a wonderful Fianna Fáil initiative put forward called the Employment Support Scheme. In the chocolate business, we're very seasonal. Come May, you're all thinking about bikinis and salads. You're not thinking about eating chocolates or buying chocolates for your wives, your girlfriends, or your family or your mothers. So, 3-day week is something that I do not want to have to put my people on. And indeed, I might, endanger a family or their mortgage. At that stage, the employment subsidy scheme came in. And you know all about it, Minister. I don't have to go into detail because the Cathaoirleach is going to get very angry with me because I can't take up the whole day, the Senate. But thank you, Minister, for listening to me. Well done on your report. But I've lots more to say to you. Thank you.
Okay, good.